Hi, welcome to the video. My name's Icronic, and today I wanted to talk about my top 10 hunter exotics in Destiny 2. And of course, as always, this is based off the spreadsheet that I create for you guys that's fully public for you guys to use. That can be found over at my Discord server in the channel #spreadsheetsdoc. And of course, these spreadsheets would not be possible without the cute animals on screen right now. And while I have your attention by cute animals, I mean my patrons on Patreon. Truly, these spreadsheets take a long time, a lot of testing, a lot of deliberation, a lot of experience, and of course, just updating the spreadsheets. If you want to see them continue, please consider checking out my Patreon down below. They're brought to you by these cute, fluffy animals. Oh, aren't they adorable? Moving on to the main section of the video, this is my spreadsheet. Well, it's dark theme, color-coded pictures, information, PvE and PvP rankings, notes, etc, for all of the different exotics in the game. And as usual, this video is going to be split into two main parts. First, we're going to go over the top 10 in reverse order. Then we're going to go over all of the non-ranked items very briefly, talking about why they're not part of the top 10. Keep in mind that this list may contain a lot of really fun and also very effective exotics. It's just that I have to pick 10 for the top 10. First up at number 10 today, we have the Orpheus rig. Now this exotic was good before, and now with Void 3.0, you definitely see it a lot more commonly. However, instead of for the main one, the Trapper one, where you get more ability energy from hitting enemies with it, people are using it more with Mobius Quiver, because now, instead of 2 volleys, you shoot 3 volleys. And on top of that, the first volley causes the weaken, the second does extra damage from the weaken, and the third one also does extra damage against the weaken. So it's more often used in DPS, more these days with Mobius Quiver. And to be honest, that's it. You get an extra shot Mobius Quiver, you get ability energy whenever you use the Trapper version, and it's still really good to have, and Void 3.0 is really strong. Following that at number 9, we have the Raiden Flux, probably one of the most underused, really good exotics in the game. Essentially just makes your arc staff last a lot longer. Every time you get a hit on an enemy, your super starts to generate very, very slowly. And something that a lot of people overlook is that when you're in your super, you have a very high resistance. Combine this with Way of the Wind, just keep on dodging, and you are an extremely resistant boy. Even on legend difficulties in the legend campaign, or even highest leveled grandmasters, you survive a lot. And Raiden Flux allows you to stay in that super for a lot longer, keeping your teammates from being shot as often, being a lot more resistant, and of course, killing more enemies. Following that at number 8, we have the Wormhusk Crown, an exotic that's been dominant in the Crucible for a very, very long time. The fact that you can just dodge to get your health and shields back, around half of your health and shields, allows you to re-engage with more health, surprise your enemy, escape with more health, making you much more likely to survive, and of course with a hunter you can dodge every, 11-15 seconds and get your health back, which usually you're dodging to get out of enemy fire anyways, you might as well get a bit of health on it. And something to keep in mind is it may be a decent option for PvE as well. Although it's not as powerful and often the damage exotics get priority, if you're dying a lot with Celestial Nighthawk, that's not as useful, so maybe this will be better for you. Following that at number 7, we have the Mask of Bakris, which is still an extremely powerful powerhouse in the Crucible, although it did lose a little bit of power in PvE, considering that the arc-based weapons like Anarchy, First and Last Out, are just not nearly as strong as they used to be. Nowadays, it's Gjallarhorn, and Gjallarhorn, I guess. That being said, I still think it's really nice to get that extra damage of stasis damage, extra arc damage if you want that, which does stack with everything else. And of course, in Crucible, you're able to teleport dodge, avoid all damage, and have your weapons readied out immediately after dodging, which is still really strong, and so is stasis. After that, at number 6, probably one of the most overlooked exotic these days is Omnioculus. Was still really strong last season, being able to make your allies invisible, get that Heart of the Pack bonus, which, by the way, the Heart of the Pack bonus is no longer in the game, but it also has something else that's different this season. Firstly, you only need to make one ally invisible in order to get your full melee back, where last season it took 2. Secondly, you actually cast 1 stack of resistance on your teammates, which is the new system, anywhere from 1 to 5 stacks of resistance that stack with all other kinds of resistance. However, you yourself, whenever you become invisible, you get 4 times resistance, which is ridiculously high. That's almost 50% resistance at 5 stacks. And I think that this is a bug. This doesn't sound like this is the way it's supposed to be, but this is what we've seen from our testing, and it does work. And the hunters these days have like 4 different ways of going invisible, from their dodge, from Gambler's Dodge giving you their melees, to that dive dodge, being able to throw it on your teammates. You have so many different things. Just suppress a target, hit a target with volatile rounds and kill them. There's too many ways to go invisible, and this exotic just makes you so strong. And of course in PvE, it's also really strong because you make yourself invisible and you're very resistant, and that's always nice. Following that at number 5, we have the Celestial Nighthawk. We've seen this since the base game of Destiny 2, and it's also in Destiny 1. It makes all 3 of your sharpshooter shots into one 6 times damage shot, which is very quick, very high damage, very precise, very high range. However, most people are faring more towards the Orpheus rig combo with Mobius Quiver or Starter to Scale. Celestial is still an extremely powerful option because it's so easy to use. And from what I heard, apparently Celestial can one-shot an enemy Titan through his bubble as long as you headshot him through the bubble. After that, at number 4, we have the Star Eater Scales, which allows pretty much all of your supers to do up to, I think, 70% more damage once you get the full set of stacks, and you get more super energy from the orbs that you pick up. Now, there's a couple of things to digest here. First of all, we no longer can spawn Masterwork orbs, which was an extremely easy way to spawn a bunch of orbs to max out this ability. However, technically, you got most of your super energy from these super orbs, and in the highest level play, you're using your super constantly. You usually have plenty of orbs to get an extra bonus damage, which again, is just bonus damage to any super in the game as long as you have this exotic on, which is universal, which is incredible. So we still find it, PvE, 9 out of 10, it's still extremely strong. After that, at number 3, we have the Dragon Shadow, which is the quintessential ninja armor in the game, where dodging reloads all of your weapons and increases both your movement and weapon handling for a brief period of time. First of all, the movement speed buff also improves your mobility, so you only need a tier 8 mobility, and of course you dodge, get tier 10, and of course can have a nearly 100% uptime by continually dodging with this exotic. Furthermore, your swap speed and aim down sight speed is way better than quick draw ever was. So you aim down sights and swap incredibly quickly. And on top of that, because your dodge reloads all your weapons, you don't need to use marksman's dodge, and instead you can use gambler's dodge for more melees, and it's a technically better dodge because you do the roll effect rather than the sidestep. God, if you've seen this in the Crucible, you know how terrifying it can be to go up against it. Following that at number 2, surprisingly, is the Stompies. Now the Stompies has been at like number 1 for almost the entire existence of the game because it's such an easy and useful thing to use in the Crucible, and you'll see this across all the classes. The Speed Boots, Dune Marchers, Transversive, and Stompies are all very powerful PvP exotics, because let's face it, in a shooter game, if your enemy is moving faster, they are harder to hit, and this exotic makes you sprint faster, slide farther, and improves your jumps to make them more violent and higher. On top of it being able to aggressively chase enemies and of course defensively escape battle a lot easier, the Stompies are just one of those PvP crutches that everyone knows and loves. And in PvE, it really helps with jump puzzles, not falling off the edge. Now finally, at number 1, may come as a surprise to a lot of you guys, but I have the Renewal Grasp. Now let me explain. This is a new exotic, if you've never heard of it. Makes your Duskfield grenades have a much larger effect. That's going to be the dome grenades, and allies inside of those grenades take reduced damage, and enemies deal less damage while they're inside of it as well. Now here are a couple stats about it. First of all, this gives you 2 stacks of resistance, which is nice to have. If an enemy is inside the dome with you, it takes 4 melee attacks to kill you instead of the regular 2. And if you combine this with a number of different grenade-based fragments, mods, and aspects, you can have a near 100% uptime on the actual dome, which is kind of ridiculous, right? Keep this in mind. If there is something powerful in PvP, a super, a Dawn Blade, a bubble, a well, somebody with a lot of heavy ammo, the best strategy often is walk away and wait for them to not be that powerful. With this having a near 100% uptime, having this much resistance and power is so strong because it never ends. And you also have to keep in mind, while you and your enemy are inside that bubble, you cannot be shotgun melee killed, you cannot be killed with any fusion rifle except maybe some of the slowest fire fusion rifles, and you don't even get one-shot headshot by an enemy 140 sniper. It's kind of ridiculous how strong this is, and if you haven't used it yet, you really owe it to yourself because it's really strong. And in the PvE side of things, making your whole team really resistant and having this dome to slow enemies as they approach you is very powerful. And again, near 100% uptime to continually stasis affect your targets, creating stasis crystals, whatever it may be. And moving on to the second part, we're going to go over all of the non-ranked items. And I would highly recommend that you do watch this section. You're going to find a lot of exotics that are still really good, because I can only pick 10 for the top 10, and exotics that are really fun, but are just not super effective in the end game. And of course, I will be going over these very briefly because there's a lot of them, so ask more questions in the comments down below. First up, we have Assassin's Cowl, which allows you to go invisible among all of the new ways to go invisible and the benefits of being invisible for 3 3.0, but you do have to run to enemies and finish them, which can be dangerous. The Blight Ranger, one of the new exotics that allows your arc staff to do a lot more damage when you reflect, but we found that whenever you reflect damage, it stumbles enemies. So an ogre's shooting at you, you reflect it at him and he goes, ow, and he stops shooting. It's an exotic that definitely needs a lot more to be viable. Maybe even just combine it into Raju's Harness. The Foe Tracer makes it so you can see enemies through walls that you know about and can be very useful in Crucible, just missing really the top 10. Graviton Forfeit got better because it's based on invisibility, which is kind of void based and can be very useful for solo play. Knucklehead Radar, being able to see a radar while aiming down sights, like with Ace of Spades or Might of Multi-Tool, which can be very helpful in getting a first shot, staying aware, but not a massive help. The Aeon Swift, an exotic that's surprisingly not in the top 10 like a lot of the other lists, but the hunters really have a lot of incredible exotics, so I guess it's not a huge surprise. But the Aeon being able to spawn in heavy ammo and special ammo for your team is very powerful. Athros's Embrace, making your weighted knife bounce, making it so that it has higher aim assistance, and of course the other bonuses to be able to one-shot in the body is nice. Not massively nice, and solar is not massively powerful. Capri's Sting, very high skill floor, high skill ceiling exotic that's literally banned in competitive play, and a lot of people do use it in trials. And it does work with void stuff, so you know, void 3.0. Liar's Handshake, melee based exotic for more melee damage and healing. Very fun. Not top 10 worthy because it's dangerous. Mechanier's Trick Sleeve did get a little bit better this season, or at least kind of last season when we got Forerunner, which is a special ammo sidearm that does work with this exotic, giving that a lot more damage, which does make a difference compared to the primary. Oath Keepers, useful in pretty much one scenario, is with Le Monarch, allowing you to get that poison guaranteed and is a really good thing to use. But it's one exotic for one exotic weapon, not really that omni useful. Sira Hamkara, kind of like Grave Robber on steroids, but is melee based and very dangerous. Shards of Galanor, very fun, allows you to use a very good super more frequently, but it's very inconsistent and you have to use that subclass, which is not fun. Shinobu's Vow, using very powerful skip grenades, giving you more skip grenades, overflow charging, and of course skip grenade energy back, which is fun, but arc isn't as strong as it used to be. Young Humkara's Spine works really well with solar, and this is pretty much my go-to for a lot of solar stuff for Crucible, as it allows your trip mine to be a lot better on top of being a lot more durable, which it doesn't even say. The Guizen Vest, Guishin Vest, I don't know how to say this. Either way, it makes your spectral blades last very slightly longer on average, and spectrals did get nerfed because they got placed in a longer timer. Lucky Raspberry, again, another exotic with arc stuff, arc bolt being really good, and having a chance to get that back is really good, but not really the top 10. Ophidia's Spathe, an extra melee charge just for solar on solar, which you don't really need an extra charge for. Raju's Harness, actually a really fun exotic. You can reflect enemy Nova Bombs, rockets, enemy stasis tornadoes, and most of the time people use it to activate their super, spawn orbs for their teammates so they can have high energy fire or charge light of some kind, which is just not as prevalent as it used to be. Six Coyote, you can go invisible from your dodge, you go invisible from your gambler's dodge melee effects, and can be useful for solo play, but not top 10 worthy. Frosties, a very heavy generation bonus to your melee grenade and dodge, but you're not sprinting all the time. Gemini Jester, turn off your enemy radar for like 3 seconds, a slight flashbang on their screen, and just forcing your enemy to camp, which is not what you want. Lucky Pants, a very good exotic, allows all of your hand cannons, including Ariana's Vow, to do a lot more damage, on top of swap speed, accuracy, etc., and can be used for Crucible too because of that. Radiant Dance Machines, we still haven't found a great use for it that doesn't break the game like it used to, and I really don't know what to do with it. Why does dodging multiple times make a difference? And finally, the Bombardiers, an exotic that does some stuff with different effects based on your subclass, and most of the time you can hear it and walk away. And on top of that, the stasis effect is not the same stasis. It's a separate slow, so they don't even stack with stasis slows. And as I mentioned before, this spreadsheet and these videos and my channel would not be possible without my patrons on Patreon, making a huge difference. So if you want to see these spreadsheets continue, please consider checking out my Patreon down below. Specifically, a big thank you to Mom and Dad, Christian Thompson, Kellyanne, Ostrach, Jacob Berg, Monday, City Parkrun, Unipanther, and Casey Reagan for their support on Patreon. And that's it. Hope you guys did enjoy. My name's Arcana, and I'll see you guys on the next one.